Welcome to the Chop Team. I'm your host, Seth the Dart Child.
I'm your host, twinsinc.
Our show is about two guys and any friends that happen to come over with a topic that we want to chop up.
This is our barbershop style podcast. We discuss it all. If the fellas at the shop will go in on it, we will. Let's chop it up.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Once again, we have two beautiful co-hosts.
Nedge Designs and Crafts.
Sweetness.
Yeah. And it's so cute. It throw me off every single time.
Right.
Okay.
Before time.
Once again, back to business. No, seriously though, our two guest stars today are actually Americans, but they were raised in Africa. So we are curious as to know from an educational standpoint, or first person observation, what's the difference between America and Africa in your opinions?
And before they go in, they're Jamaican Americans.
Oh, even better.
So
this is real interesting.
Jamaicans, but they grew up in Africa. So make sure that everybody's clear.
Okay, Jamaican African Americans.
Just like that.
Let's run it. So seriously, because once again, the majority of us have this view of Africa as some Sally Struthers feed the children, save the elephants fund garbage.
There's lions and tigers running around.
Yeah, and lately, of course, we've gotten Black Panther, so we have this other image that is obviously much, much, much better than we can imagine. But honestly, from a ground view, tell us some information, stories.
So I guess reality is somewhere in between.
Okay.
And for me personally, it's been over 20 years since I've touched down on the continent, so I know a lot has changed in the time that I've been away. But I think, growing up in a Caribbean household here in the States before we moved to Africa, I was 15 when we moved to Ghana. Mm-hmm. I think first we have a tendency as Americans to say Africa like the entire continent is one country. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the first thing. They're very distinct, independent countries, over 50, correct? Mm-hmm. That make up the continent of Africa. So I spent 4 years in Ghana. I went to high school there after being born here in the States and living here till I was 15. I was in Ghana until I was 19, finished high school, and then came back here for college. So I think what you'll find is being exposed to Caribbean culture and African culture, there's a lot of similarities. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of similarities between the cultures. And, if you ever watch a Nigerian, there's a Nigerian comedian out there that, tells this story about how, when you asked her mother what she was having when she was pregnant, she said, my mother's response is, I'm having a doctor. I'm having an engineer. I'm having a lawyer. So I think the expectations that Caribbean children grow up with and African children grow up with are very similar. Right. Okay. And the experience being in the U.S., either being first generation in the U.S. or, coming here as children from either Africa or from the Caribbean is a very similar experience. I think for me, one of the most profound impacts living on the continent had for me is what we take for granted here as necessities are actually privileges. Right. So we moved to Ghana in 1990. So a long time ago. And at the time, there was one television station, one local television station, and there was one local radio station. I know that's changed a lot since then. And I think you could pick up both BBC radio and BBC television stations. TV wasn't on 24/7 like we're used to. There were times that even water would get, be off for light. Light would go out. So, all of those things that are we're so used to having at our fingertips and viewing as necessities, and most of us would lose our minds if our water was cut off for a couple of hours. You know what I'm saying? Or when we lose light because of a storm. You know, you learn that those things are very much privileges, right? I think it's a very humbling experience, and for me, my response to things, I think, has very much been influenced by my time there. But people are people, right? Once I started making friends and learning my way around, people are very welcoming, very friendly, very hospitable. The food is great. A lot of similar foods to what you would eat from a Caribbean and going to a Caribbean country are
non-GMO
the same foods.
Not processed.
Just cooked a little bit differently. So we did have TV. We did have homes. I wasn't living in a hut. I wasn't running around with monkeys or lions. I wasn't swatting flies from my mouth while I was eating.
Shout out to Sally Struthers.
There are cities with infrastructure and businesses and hotels and, you know, communities just like we're used to seeing any place else in the world.
Nice. Ned, you want to add to it?
For me, when we moved to Ghana, I was 7. My first few, okay, let me just give you a little bit of background. So I was born in New Jersey, and we lived close to a lot of family. We have a very tight-knit family. Family was always over at the house, and my parents owned a couple of corner stores in New Jersey, a record store too as well. So, you know, we were always around that type of stuff. Family was always around. So when we moved, even as a kid, and I know children adapt easily, but for me, when we first moved, it was kind of a shock for me, you know. There was no family there. There were no corner stores like, you know, we had in New Jersey. I didn't really know anybody. You know, it was just us.
Okay.
Of course, like she said, once you start school and start making friends, it's different. I picked up a lot at a young age, which children typically do. For instance, their languages that they speak there. And they have about 49 different languages in Ghana. What?
I was going to say, can we hear one language?
No. At the same.
Hold on. Yeah.
She remembered. I asked her, how are you? And Ghana, she said she's fine.
Yeah.
Or Akwaba means welcome home.
Oh, Kwaba. I would say, hey, I say, ayo, shouty. Ayo. I just ask it. I do that all the time. I ain't even know I knew another language.
They do speak English there.
In the British colony.
Yes. So we're taught the British English. We don't spell color COLOR. It is COLOUR.
Right.
That sounds bougie to just add letters to words.
But I know, like, for me, when I came back and, you know, telling people, oh, I grew up in Ghana, a lot of people were like, well, how did you understand them? Were there animals out there? Did you guys wear clothes? I'm like, what?
I ran around naked.
American
we were all going. But in the schools, it is mandatory to speak English. They do also teach, you know, Ghanaian language in the school, depending on, I guess, where, you know, which part of Ghana you are. Yeah, where you go to school. It was definitely a learning experience, and I think because I grew up in Ghana, I can adapt to any situation. You know, Like she said, things are not, or certain things are privileges. Water, because your water can get cut off and it can be gone for a couple of days. You know, we had like big barrels where we would catch water in and just kind of store it for such days. You can go without electricity. Did we have charcoal stove? We had a regular one, but we also had.
Yes, we also use a charcoal stove. There are certain things that are just meant to be cooked on a charcoal stove.
Okay.
We did have animals running around. We had chickens.
We did have chickens. We actually, we wouldn't really go to the store and buy chicken. We would
raise our own.
Kill one of our chickens and eat it.
You killed the chicken.
Did you
Not me.
Hear the African accent come out there for a second?
I thought I heard you say "we" on that killed chicken part.
Not me, but
Majesty can go from sounding Jamaican to African to straight American like that.
Okay.
Her poor children are probably confused.
but yeah, you know, you're raising your own animals. You know, when you want some chicken, hey, you kill them, you pluck the feathers,
Right.
you clean it, you cut it up, cook it, and eat it.
I saw my grandmother do that once when I was, 6, 7. It was the most disgusting thing I ever seen in my life.
I mean, it's a little bit traumatizing because you get attached to the chicken. You know, didn't we name them sometimes?
Yes.
And then she killed it and fed it to us. Who does that?
Was it
I
good?
bet you it tasted
I didn't
good,
eat
though.
it. No.
Oh,
You were on strike?
He was traumatized.
Honestly, I will just add to this day, I cannot eat something I knew was alive personally. Like going to fish, I can't eat it was alive. Just because I know I don't know, it's weird. But when she killed that chicken, and it was the chicken, my mama said the chicken name was Red. It was Red. He attacked my grandmother one day when she was hanging up clothes, and she was waiting for the day that she could get him. And so when she killed him, we were over there on a holiday. And there was a lot of us over there. She went outside. She grabbed the hatchet from the wall in the garage. She walked over to the chicken, caught him, and it was like we were sitting on the back porch. Oh, she looked crazy out there chasing the chicken. She grabbed the chicken, and he's squawking and everything. She took him over to the little wood block of wood, and we're like, what clunk? What the hell, man?
Did you see him flap around and run around after he lost his head?
And then she walked by us in the house with the dead chicken, and all of us sitting on the porch like this. Oh my God!
Traumatized.
And you know what? She went in the kitchen. We all in the backyard. Now we scared. And all of a sudden, a little while later, smelling pretty good. You know what I'm saying? She called us in for dinner. Big old red bowl of chicken on the stove.
Big old bowl of red.
And honestly, me and my cousins, all of us were sitting there at that table staring at that bowl. It's like, y'all want some? Nope. Then my cousin, the only one, was like, yeah, I'll take a piece. I mean,
He was hungry and it smelled good.
Exactly. It was like five of us. One of my boy cousins was the only one that ate a piece of that chicken. I was like,
And you know why? Because you grew up seeing your chicken come home in a package from the supermarket and not on the farm.
I love cellophane.
You were a
Cellophane is my
sheltered
friend.
child. Sheltered child. So I'm not to go down that rabbit hole. That's why we all screwed. If this country goes to hell in a handbasket, we're gonna starve. We're not gonna know how to start no fires. We ain't gonna be able to kill animals, grow chickens to eat. You know how to plant and grow vegetables.
I mean, I know how to put seeds in the ground.
Yeah, that's easy.
Wait, no. Wait.
Water it.
I know how to put seeds in the ground, how to keep them from dying, how to keep the weeds up out of. No. Yeah, I don't plan on surviving the apocalypse. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go out like a hero, but I'm going out.
So,
funny.
so with Africa, right? So, I know y'all grew, not grew, but you had a farm, right?
Yeah,
so,
my dad did.
So you still had stores, right? Get other supplies, right?
So yeah, you had stores and you also had the market.
The marketplace.
Like open air market where you'd go and you'd have people selling rice out of huge crocus bags. Like, you guys know what crocus bags are?
No.
We know what crocus sacks is.
Okay.
Everybody got those under the sink right now.
That's why I said no.
Wait, what?
That's why I said no.
Hey, crocus sacks. Girl, them little brown bags at the grocery store. Crocus sacks.
No. That's why I said no to kind of say when he didn't know. Go explain to us, please. Go explain to us. What is it?
They can either be cloth or they can be plastic woven bags that you would, like rice is stored in bulk.
Big bags.
Big bulk bags of rice that would probably, if you stood up, come up to your waist maybe. Mm-hmm. Full of sugar, rice, flour, beans. So things like that, women would be selling, and they use like cans to measure out how much. And then you'd have fresh fruits and vegetables in a section, and then you'd have meats that are probably smoked meats. Typically, if you're going to get fresh fish, you go down to where they're catching the fish and coming in with the fresh fish. But
he's like, no.
So, Seth, do you like red lobster?
Do I like red lobster?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Do you get crabs? Do you get
No.
Oh, okay.
I do shrimp. But no, honestly, if I can't, I've tried. So this isn't just that I'm being crazy. If I saw it alive, I can't eat it. So I've seen a cow get slaughtered. I've seen a pig get slaughtered. No, I don't. I'm not eating it. It was just alive. If you brought
but
it,
you're not vegetarian.
no, at all.
He'll still eat it. He just don't want to see it there.
If you brought a slaughtered hog or a side of beef out of a freezer, cook it up. If you killed the cow, I don't want any. It's
because he didn't see it. It's a mental thing.
It's a
mental
thing. Psychotic thing, I guess.
Psychological.
No, I think it's. I chose psychotic, but yeah, no, and it's weird. Even fishing, I've been fishing, but I just fed them worms or whatever bait. Now you want me to eat it? No. Throw it back in, and then you go to Captain D's and get some.
You're just a city dweller, city boy.
I'm not gonna survive the apocalypse. I'm not gonna unless I find a Twinkie factory.
Right, because they don't expire.
Exactly. I'll still die from diabetes, but it's still. I'm just throwing. I look at National Geographic and stuff, and I seen somebody eat the back of a tarantula or something like that. Dude, I'm starving to death.
Yeah.
That's all I'm telling you. I eat all the fruit I can, but if I probably won't have any more meat if I got to kill it myself.
Understandable. Now, I haven't been to Africa yet, but I've been to Jamaica. So when you were saying about the water sometimes not working or whatever, now the water did work when it was in Jamaica, but sometimes the water doesn't stay hot for long. So you got to,
the water is cold in Jamaica. You have to have a water heater to heat it up.
Right. And not everybody has a water heater. And it's the same thing in Ghana.
Okay. So still, the thing is here, in the States, we're privileged.
Yes.
That to turn on the hot water, we get hot water. Simple as that. It's a privileged thing we have here.
That's not the case there.
Right. So when I went to Jamaica with y'all the first time I went there, and the hot water was like hot in the morning, I made sure long story short, I valued that because when I came back to the States, I'm like, man, I got hot water turn on all day, but there I had to make sure I take a shower early in the morning. If I want hot water, I'm gonna take a cold shower. So it just pretty much to me is like when I came back here, I was like, all right, I'm gonna take like a 2-minute shower now instead of a 30-minute hot shower because I'm wasting water here. But when I was there in Jamaica, man, to make a 5-minute shower, I turn the water off, put soap on, turn the water on, rinse off, I'm done. But I'm here, I'm sitting there all day in the water. The water's running all day. I'm spending like 20 minutes in the shower taking a little sauna. So I'm like, wow. So
yeah, even water is a necessity. And I'm going to give you an example. I went to boarding school, and even though the school that I went to was in the city, we still had to grab our buckets, walk down to the well, pull up water, pour it in our buckets, carry it back down the hill to the house to take our showers. It was later on, we ended up building like, well, not we, but the school, through donations of our parents, they put tanks in the houses that we used to live in. So instead of having to walk down and fetch the water, we still had to go to the water tanks, but it was in the house at this time, and, take the water and then take our baths that way. We didn't really have a lot of running water then either.
Okay. Oh, okay. I got two questions. Real simple. So when you came back to the States, was there anything culture shockish? And second question, and I say this for my kids specifically, would you prefer to raise your kids in Africa or the U.S.?
So I think for me, coming back, the first thing I notice when I get off the plane coming back from Ghana is the lack of greenery, right? That's the first thing. You're driving around and everything. It's just like, when you hear, is it Bob Marley that's talking about concrete jungle? For real. The lack of greenery. I think outside of that, for me, I was 15 when we left here. So for me, it was an easy adjustment. I think I missed my friends. I missed the food. And I've moved around as an adult too. And I think for me, every time I move, I miss the people and I miss, the places that I would eat and the food more than anything else.
I don't really remember it being. I think I was just happy to be back around family. Family's important to me, so I love when we all get together and we're all around. So that was a big thing for me. But I don't really remember, 'cause I came back and I lived with Sweetness.
Okay.
I didn't name myself, by the way. I did not give myself that name.
I'm good.
As far as like the development is concerned, of course, it's a lot more developed here. So,
and is that even still the case, right? Because when we talk about hot water, I think that like even being in Jamaica and being at our aunt's house or being with family, most of our family have hot water heaters. They're just not the large, massive hot water heaters that we're used to that can keep you in hot water with 10 people taking a shower all day, right? So, what we haven't spoken about is people that are well off in Ghana. Oh my gosh, you're talking about housekeeper, 4 cars, driver, cook. They're not. I mean, they are living
the life.
So it really just depends on who you're exposed to, where you are, whose home you're in, whether or not they're gonna have hot running water all day. Right? And just like any place else, you're going to find that there are disparities between how people live based on their socioeconomic status. Right? So people who are well off are going to have hot running water. They're going to be living in big houses with huge yards and better than most average people here because they've got somebody driving their 5 cars, picking up the people, their kid, dropping the kids off at school, picking the kids back up, driving them around. They've got people cleaning their homes. They've got people cooking for them, right? Tending to their landscape and their yard, and then you've got more of what more would be aligned with what you would call middle class here. right? But those people didn't necessarily have hot water heaters there, right? But they still lived in homes. They maybe didn't have a driver and a housekeeper and all of that, but they lived comfortably, right? So there's a spectrum, and that's the case no matter where you go on the globe, right? You're gonna have people who are well-to-do that have all the amenities, and people that are not well-to-do that struggle.
And I just want to add this: the experiences that we had, as far as the development of the country, it's a lot different now. If I was to go back to Ghana right now, I wouldn't recognize it because they have malls and hotels and restaurants and clubs and so it's like a whole different vibe now.
It's developed a lot over the years.
A lot.
And I guess that's when you think about Africa, and the sad thing is, the sad part about us as African Americans not knowing more about the continent is it's ripe for opportunity and for growth, right? It's the place to be. A lot of opportunities here from a business perspective that are a lot of things that used to be opportunities here from a business perspective that are no longer opportunities here are opportunities there, right? And I think what often we don't recognize and realize is that this world is the way that it is because it has benefited from the wealth of the continent.
Facts.
Europe is not. There's no European country that has not raped and pillaged the continent to support their economies and what we consider their quality of life. Wow. Not one, right? So it's the richest continent on the face of this earth, both in minerals and in the wealth of its people. It's just been exploited, right? So when you ask the question about where would I raise my kids, I think when it comes to being close to family, I mean, if my whole family would pick up and move, there would be no question.
Right.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say with the education system also, I would say it's a lot higher than what it is here.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. We rank.
More challenging, more
useful.
Yes.
Yeah, these kids are crazy.
It's not kids' play.
Yeah, I mean, how do you know what? Whole different topic. But there is a problem with the fact that you have to go to school from kindergarten to 12th grade and still have to pay for 4 more years of education just to get a decent job. That's a problem. But okay, I mean,
That's a whole nother topic.
It is. We're not going to go there. 'Cause it's something else. I should have brought this up earlier also. I read an article about the Return to Africa program in Ghana. That if you're part of the diaspora, which is everyone in the U.S. and the Caribbean, most likely, you can just come home. You can come home and they'll allow you to have citizenship in Ghana. So I should have touched base on how y'all thought about that. I don't know if that's another topic though. That could be pretty in-depth.
No, I think it's a wonderful thing, right? For most, it's going to be a culture shock. It's definitely again, you're talking to two women who grew up in a Caribbean home, even though we were born here. So our experience is going to be a little bit different than someone who's African American without the Caribbean heritage or background is experience. And I think it depends on your exposure. It really depends on your exposure and how open-minded you are, right? And the government will welcome you home, but you're going to be in another country. Culture is going to be different. Can your mind be open enough to be welcoming and receptive to the culture that you're walking into? As Americans, we tend to think of our norm as the standard. And again, it's what you're exposed to. So if you've never been exposed to anything different, everything different is going to seem weird and crazy. And, so how open-minded can you be to go and really learn and try to understand the background and the basis of where things come from, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that in particular, I attribute to my time in Ghana. I tend to try and understand where people are coming from, right? To be able to put myself in their shoes or to understand why somebody thinks the way that they do, because I know the exposure that I've gotten, it just has a huge impact on how I see and receive the world.
Awesome.
Got nothing to follow up that.
Fun fact. The dogs in Africa do not live in the house.
They do not.
No,
They live outside, they chew on bones and do not die.
fun fact, the dogs in America live outside in black neighborhoods and they eat the damn bones.
No, only the not bougie. Non-bougie.
That's a good one.
It's house dogs. What do they think of next? They'll be letting them lick them in the face and mouth. I mean, what is
They
the
already
world
do
coming
that
to?
here.
Oh my God.
All right, people. Well, I hope that gave everybody a little more detail and depth thoughts and vision of Africa. It's not what the white media has made it out to be. It's not a poor, broken down country. It's actually growing. Big shout out to Akon for everything he's doing. Electricity. Now he's building his own city.
In Senegal.
In Senegal.
Yeah.
Oh,
Still
my
awesome.
bad. But still, he's still doing things that, there's other black millionaires out there, and no one else is doing anything close to that. Maybe Oprah, her schools there and there, but still,
He's building no city.
he's doing it big.
I mean, okay, keep going.
No.
Boy, there's so many different conversations on that topic, but let's go with it.
But that's all I have. Any closing remarks for anyone else?
Go visit.
Yes.
Take time to go visit. Visit the castles. Visit
slave dungeons.
Slave dungeons where the slaves were kept. I mean,
Wait, Africa has slaves?
Well,
we should spend a little we should do a topic on that one.
Okay.
It's pretty bad.
Oh, wow. Continue. Sorry. I'm learning. Like I said before, I'm learning. I'm listening and learning.
Yeah, take the opportunity and the time to go and be open-minded and, just be open-minded.
All right, everybody. And also go visit Wakanda.
Yeah. My final thought is thank you, ladies. That was an awesome educational experience.
Facts.
Thanks for joining us today.
We out.
Peace.